Exciting.
So exciting.
I love being back on Between the Lines.
Yes.
All right. So we are now streaming. So, Katie, how was your April?
My Aprils are always amazing. You know why?
It's your
My birthday month.
birthday. So, I mean, I assume that's it.
Yeah. Yep. That is it. And I am, oh my God, my headphones are dying. Yay. Charger didn't work. Oh, there you go. So I turned 49 plus a year.
I was like 5-0, right?
Yep, that's what it is. It's big 5-0, and everybody's like, "Are you okay?"
Well, it's great though that you have young friends like me because I'll be able to like push you around late in life.
This is true. So it was actually very cool. My family was very good to me, and we didn't do anything crazy, but I did get tickets to Spain. And I'm pretty pumped about that.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. We're gonna go. My daughter has a she's got this really cool 1 week intensive. She's an actress and she gets to study under the Margolis method, which is something. And she's gonna be there for a week, and we're gonna catch her at the end of that, hang out with her for a while, and then send her home and have just like a couple time. So it's gonna be nice.
So fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it. Really nice gift. So that's what's going on with me. What's going on with you?
Well, May is a big month in our house because Ryland is turning 8 years old.
8 is 8. Symmetrical number. Yep.
Or something like that. So we're really excited, and we're in big birthday prep, and school ends, so everybody's getting ready to be out of school, which is very exciting. And I'm working hard on maximizing my profit.
Yes. I suppose we have to talk about our book at some point, right?
Talk about it, right? That is, I guess, kind of like why we're here. So
nope, I told you last month I don't want to talk about money.
I still don't want to talk about this hardcore. Oh, the other thing is, most of you will see I'm drinking water. I am having a dry May.
Shut up. I am drinking a protein shake because I am also going dry. I don't know how long I can handle it.
I have not talked about this. So that is actually the first time I said out loud that I'm having a dry May. And I kind of did it to stay accountable that like, I'm going to do this all month. I don't know if I'm going to make it all month, but I'm going to try really hard.
So, yeah. So I'm doing like this, like a fitness challenge, like a nutrition challenge at the gym. At the gym, because I haven't even changed since I went to the gym.
I like it.
It's off.
You're like, I went this morning. No.
But yeah, and I haven't had alcohol for over a week.
Nice.
I don't really notice anything. A lot of people are like, oh, it sleeps so much better. No, everything isn't much better. Everything's the same.
My life is exactly the same as it was when I was drinking wine and vodka.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we'll notice something. Anybody on who's watching now or the recording, have you guys gone like a dry month or 6 weeks?
I have a friend that did a Sobtember.
Sobtember. Oh, I like it.
But it was when we were in college, and in college football, it's really hard to do a sober September. So
no.
But you and I are going to avoid this as long as we possibly
I don't want to talk about money.
So I'm going to bring it up. I have read this book hundreds of times, it feels like, but I read it and quite often, and I refer back to it. Actually, Gwen Dobbenmeyer, she referred it to me 2-3 years ago, maybe. And I first read it, and as soon as I read it, I put profit first into, like, I implemented it in my business, and I immediately saw an impact. But I loved it. What did you think? This was your first time reading it, no?
Yes, this was my first time. I actually loved it too. it didn't make me want to talk about money. Actually, you know what?
I mean, I still like talking about money, but I feel more conscious about what I'm doing with money.
Yes, that is true. And actually what it did for me, so I don't know how it is in your family, but we sort of, a family is a corporation. It is a business. You've got to have meetings, you've got to have policies, you've got to have systems, and money is one of those systems. And you also have, if you have two people in a relationship, in a marriage or whatever, you have to figure out who's going to do all the jobs, and you can't just split all the jobs equally. That's what I found. So
Yeah.
in money is something that we had to figure out how to do. And that they have those like pre-marriage classes. They should have a whole finance, like this should be, or books like this.
Like a pre-business class.
Honest to God, like, because you get so weird about it. Like money and food are two things that we absolutely have to live with, but are so loaded, and we make up all kinds of garbage about them that makes us crazy people about it. So in money's one of them. But anyway, I digress, and we'll probably digress again.
Did you use money as your bookmark?
Yeah.
I loved it.
Benjamin. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I am a cuckoo person, and I did that for the compound effect too, because I wanted to get to the next chapter. And so it was an incentive, and I could pull it out and I could spend it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So part of what I like about Profit First is I think all of our issues with money kind of go back to how we were raised. And I wouldn't say I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I'd never really wanted for anything. My parents like required that I worked and things like that, but I never really knew what it was to like yearn for something and not be able to have it. And then in my professional life at a young age, I had fairly good success. And so I kind of continued that. And then I sort of reached this point of like where I was in my business and I was like, everybody's talking about profits, and I've never really had this issue with profits, but I feel like I have to understand why it's an issue for other people so that I don't have it. And that's where this book came into play. And as soon as I started taking my profit first, it drastically changed like my entire life, because I stopped playing catch up to all of the things that I wanted to do or all of the things I committed to. I realized, okay, this is like, I want to make this, I want to profit this, but this is like what I've got to work with elsewhere. And so instead of like that rat race of I have to get another sale so that I can pay this bill, I got into this mode of like, this is what I've got to work with. And if I get that extra sale or I do that extra deal, that's great, because all areas of my life can have more. So true.
And I actually think before we go any further with it, I think we need to drill down and kind of give.
Oh, we should tell people what the book is about.
Because remember, we told them they don't have to read it.
True.
So okay. I'm going to start. Can I start? Yep. And then I want you to take it from there, because I've got the basics, but you will be able to expand so much more on this book.
Sure.
So, and stop me if you're like, Katie, no, that's you did not get the right message there, because that's possible.
Reading the same book, Katie.
Right. This could happen. Essentially, well, I love how he lays out how we all typically sort of what our default tends to be. So when, like, for you live this life when things are good, things are good. We can buy the things we need and want, and we can invest where we need. Everything is fine. And you never really encountered the typical situation where most businesses and families hit, which is like, ooh, we have to make some choices, or like, crap, we're about to go out of business. Something bad is going to happen. I can't pay the mortgage, or I can't, we've got rent on this place, or whatever it is you have to pay for business. and shit, we gotta do some selling. We gotta blah, blah, you know, hammer, 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 which is exactly what most of us do. Ooh, it looks like we're, you know, heading into a dry spell. We better sell, sell, sell. And you always seem to spend what you have. It's like this principle we operate on. It's like no matter how big your closets are, you will fill them.
Yep.
Am I right? Like if you're given no limits, you actually, whatever closets you have are your limits, and so you go to the ends. And the same thing goes with money. And even in it's the whole concept of this is putting aside your profit and your so it's profit and your salary, right? Or your profit and your draw.
Well, it's yes, and it's kind of, I just think of it as like the many accounts, like the small
Yes.
theory.
Yes. And,
yes, it is your profit and your salary and your taxes.
Taxes, right?
Operating. Yeah, that money.
Yeah, that money that is never mine. But you know, but pulling out those hard things first, because profit is because people, you know, I love how he talks about people are all top line. Like, what was my net income, especially for real estate agents? We're like, well, my gross commission was blah, 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 blah. I don't care what your gross commission was because you spent a lot of money. I know I did on everything, just advertising.
How many of us have done this, especially in real estate? You get a bonus or you get a commission check, and it's for a bigger deal than like maybe your average sales price. And so you go and you buy yourself something more extravagant than you normally would. And already what we're doing when we do that stuff is we're cutting into our profit, and we're cutting into, frankly, our margins across the board.
But the cool thing about this book is it doesn't mean you can't have that really cool thing.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's actually what this book taught me is, so I was very blessed where I had a decent amount of savings, but I had not gone through, because I was so young, having to save, except now I have 2 kids that I think are probably going to go to college.
Yeah. If they make it through tonight.
Yeah, if they make it through tonight or any other night. No, but, and so it became something that then once I had a family, I was like, you know, I want to save. Like, I've always been buying me, but my expenses weren't what they are now. And, you know, I want to learn how to save better. And so that's where this came really into play for me, where it wasn't so much about, you know, spending so much on the business. It was about, okay, like, I don't want to just get big checks and then spend big. I want to figure out how should I allocate this money and what makes sense.
Yeah. And and I love that he goes on our natural tendency, because first thing in the morning, you wake up, you check a couple emails, and then you check the bank balance. And that's how you know how you're doing, right? But that's what you're going to do anyway. So he says, just check this bank balance. You leave that tax bank balance alone, or you can check it and be like, I'll be okay at tax time. And you can look at your profit balance and be like, sweet. But then you need to look at the other bank balances to know what you're operating, for example, what you actually can go. Is it time to invest in new fancy signs, or, you know, we're going to get a new swag order now that I know. Yeah.
Well, and I love that they use this example of like when he was a kid. I remember my parents doing this, but when he was a kid, how his mom used to have envelopes. And
yes.
That amount of envelopes. And it made me laugh because when we were planning our wedding, I used to take like cash and I'd shove it in a cowboy boot. And our wedding planner even used to joke with us. She's like, do you have any boot money for me today? Because I was pulling it off the side because I didn't want to have it in any of these other like just personal accounts that
accessible accounts. Yeah.
And so I think the logic behind it is so sound of it's basically a much more sophisticated way of having various envelopes of like, this goes to this goes to that, this goes to whatever else.
Yeah, well, it's very much so it's so good for for self-employed people, but it can also be for people who are getting salary, but especially for business owners where you get these big checks in. You know, when you have a job, a job, and you're employed, you can have any number of things taken out. Your health savings account, your retirement, your taxes are taken out, Social Security, all of these things. It's the same thing. You're just using, you have to have one shred of discipline when that first check comes in. That's all. And you've got to make the right deposits. But
Well,
after
and
that,
even though still, like, I love that you brought up that point, because it got me thinking, obviously not having a job and running my own company, it got me thinking of when you're employed by somebody else and you've got that stuff coming out of your check, it's the exact same logic, except the government's putting it in those various accounts.
yeah, yeah,
Whoever is putting it in those various accounts for you. And so you're really just getting kind of that profit at the end of the day, or basically that profit plus operating expenses. So kind of to boil it down, what they describe as kind of that initial, like, this is how we think of accounting.
yeah.
I'm looking for the page. I just had it and I lost the page, of course, as I started talking.
Is it in chapter 2?
It is, and I just flipped away from it. Shoot. So it used to be sales minus expenses
Yes.
profit. That's how most people account. Except when you account that way, the premise that he sets forth, or the thesis that he puts forth, is when you're accounting that way, your sales always has to be higher because your expenses are always higher if you want to get any profit whatsoever. And unfortunately, at least in real estate, I can say, when your sales are higher, we all know, truthfully, our expenses inch up too.
Yes.
Because you have more things, you're paying for more photographs, you're paying for more marketing, you have more high level expenses. And I imagine for any small business, it's the same sort of thing. But if you, and unfortunately what that gets us on is sort of that hamster wheel of, I've got to keep selling, which, kind of aside from finances, getting to a much more comfortable topic for us, Katie, time management, self-care, health, all of those things, the initial, like, this natural accounting formula of sales minus expenses equals profit, that's a recipe for burnout. Like, that's a recipe for disaster in all of those other areas, let alone your wallet. So I think that sucks anyway.
It's so true. And so what I found that was really interesting is, so I was started to tell you that, like, you know, in our family, my husband just loves this stuff. He's really good at it. He's got a great vision, and it's his jam. He's really comfortable with this stuff.
Right.
And in exchange, I write all his emails because he's like, angry customer, how do I respond? And he starts typing. I'm like, you can't send that. So, but
that's a good trade-off, though.
Oh yeah. Oh no, believe me. Yeah. Yes, I have kept his business in business that way. And he's kept mine by being my CFO. So anyway, so I said, honey, I don't really actually know what you do when you do this. And I'm reading this book. And so he talks about doing this and doing that. And he goes, you know those Marcus accounts that we have? And I was like, oh yeah. So we have these Marcus accounts. It's where we can save money online, elsewhere, very hard to get at. And I was like, that's wicked smart. You are. Did you read this book? And he's like, no, I didn't.
He's like, no, I just know how to.
I actually figured out how to do this. And I honestly think there are different intelligences. I joke about being like allergic to talking about this stuff. And it's not that I'm not that freaked out about by it, but it's just come so more naturally to him, for example. And so he does this because he and I we're like, let's get a kitchen. We had a big closing, but instead we have a lovely closing coming up. Let's pay all our taxes for next year. Like, That's where we're at with it. And I'm like, hallelujah, yes, let's do it.
That's like a 50-year-old exciting thing.
Oh my God, this is hashtag this is 50.
No, I love it though. You're so right. And it's so it comes very naturally to some people. And I don't know if it's necessarily my upbringing or something that just immediately did not come naturally to me. But I'm also a big believer, and I think you would agree with this now too, that whether or not it comes naturally to you, anyone can learn how to do it.
Oh, heck yes. Oh, okay. All right. So this is, as promised, another diversion. But I am this is this is important. We're going to call it what it is. There are a lot of things that don't come natural to you, to me, whatever. We sort of have, we can, come with our strengths, and that's great. But there is nothing you can't learn. There's nothing you can't learn and get better at. You may not be a master at whatever it happens to be, but don't tell me, oh, I'm just not a financial person, or I'm just a slob. Actually, it's kind of funny. My husband, who is this is like, truth serum. I'm not even drinking, but here we go. So
Wilbur May is doing all sorts of great things.
So what was I saying? So my husband is naturally really good at money. He's also naturally really neat. I am not, and not that I'm like sloppy or anything, but like I have a higher tolerance for like clutter or stuff that's out, because sometimes it represents like a kid's in the middle of a project, or I was, cooking this dinner and I stopped to make a phone call and I'll come back, and like he would never do that. And it makes him nuts. And it actually became like almost like an issue. So I was like, at first I was like, you're crazy. I'm like, well, you know what? He's not crazy, and I could probably learn to be a little more conscientious about picking up, because it doesn't matter that much to me. Yeah. But I had to learn it. It did not come naturally to me, and I had to get better at it. And now I'm really proud of myself. I like make my bed almost every morning, which sounds silly. Like some people, it's the easiest thing in the world. And like, it wasn't easy for me to get in the habit, but I got there. And it wasn't because I was born that way.
Figuring out kind of, I say this to people all the time about a variety of topics, but it's also like figuring out the mode that works for you. So like, I'll never forget growing up, my dad was an attorney, and my dad's an inherently fairly neat person. But I remember walking into my dad's office and always thinking that place was like a complete wreck, because he had papers everywhere.
Yes.
Stacks of papers that were like up to my shoulder. But it was very much how his mind worked. Like I could ask him where such and such was, and he could say, it's about a quarter of a way down that pile.
Yeah.
Like he knew that sort of stuff, and he's very good with money. So I think some of it is just, it's not necessarily you have to be neat. It's that you have to figure out what your organized chaos is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that anybody who's out there, like I said, I joke about not being like a money person, but anybody else who thinks they're not a money person, I don't care what you think you are, you can do this. It's so easy. It is so easy.
That's what struck me. So, okay. So the new accounting formula.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
Instead of it being sales minus expenses equals profit, which is what we're all used to and comfortable with and work for most days, it is sales minus profit should equal your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And so the logic of this, and when I first read it, I was like, wait, I thought I'm getting the profit first. Like, why are we subtracting this? What's going on here?
Yes.
And I'm like, he's saying what my expenses equal, but like, I don't really care what those equal. I want to know what my profit equals. Yeah. And what I realized as I was reading it is I think that's why so many people account as sales minus expenses equals profit, because they want to know what their profit is like.
Yes.
And they want to be able to account for that immediately.
Yes.
And it looks slightly different. And the reason why is you have to kind of know what your sales are going to be or what they were, and then you're taking a percentage of that as your profit. And I think that's what makes a lot of people uncomfortable, because I talk to agents all the time where I'll say, what's in your pipeline? Like, how much business are you going to do this year? And everyone's like, well, like, I mean, around something, and like never really can get out that number. And I think when we don't know that number, it throws the whole thing.
Yep. Yep. So what advice do you give to people when they don't know that number?
So my philosophy is you want to aim high, but prepare low. And what I mean by that is shooting high as for what you think that you can do, but prepare for if things don't go that way, and you're not preparing for if you don't sell any houses,
Right.
it'll be bad. But if you don't have a banner year, what's the bare minimum you could also see yourself doing, and accounting in that way? And I really like accounting in that way because I'm also a big commitment phobe, which my wife will tell you. And the big commitment phobe part of me is like, I like preparing low for that bare minimum because I'm going to sign up for less stuff. And in real estate or any other industry, people go out of business because they sign up for too much stuff.
Oh my God.
Like, I would rather pay $10,000 on like stroke a check for $10,000 than pay $1,000 for 10 months.
Yes. Yes.
And the reason why is like, I can get $10,000 and like be done with it. And then like, if I don't get that next month, I'm okay still.
Right.
Rather than like going delinquent and then it adding up or something like that. Like that makes me very nervous.
So commission-based businesses like real estate need to, as much as possible, pay your bills the way you get paid. So we get paid in big chunks. We don't get a steady income, and that's hugely good advice. So if you do want to sign up for something like I've got Bomb, and it's fairly good, it's whatever, it's a few $100, but I would much rather just be like, all right, I've got the money, let's pay it now. I don't want your monthly thing. And oftentimes if you pay the whole year, you get a little break, whatever it happens to be. If you're signing up for something that's important to you, you could do that. And I think that is actually a really great way to do it. And there was something else that I was just thinking about.
I agree. Actually, the reason why I think it's funny is I think Deanne, our project manager, is still on watching, but she will tell you, I will go through, I've been through 20 project like task management softwares of like, and we always go through the free version for a while. And I'm like, I gotta see if I like this. And part of it is I need to like know I'm there before I commit on that expense. And so many of us, I think, make a really big mistake of overcommitting. And the problem is, if you go back to that original formula of sales minus expenses equals profit, is we build up our expenses so high that our sales are constantly trying to catch up. But what happens when you're here on sales and you're here on expenses? Not only are you not making profit, you're in the red. And so you have to make that up next month. And like, we just get in this constant cycle of, am I going to be able to make it up? And I mean, frankly, that's how people get into debt.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So I have a question because I didn't get all the way through the book. So I want to know, and I don't know if this has to do with being revealed at the end. So I put my profit away. When do I spend it?
Oh, so you run your business kind of like a corporation. So you can take, you put your profit away and then you get the quarterly distribution. So you can do, I do quarterly distributions of pretty much everything. So I also do quarterly tax payments. Again, talk to your accountant. I should have led with that, but you should talk to your accountant about this, in part because I don't think that their percentages on taxes are correct, especially real estate. So I just want to get that out of there. Talk to your accountant about what you want these percentages to be, because I think they way undershoot what your
yes. What year was this published? Because I mean, tax laws have changed too.
Yes. I don't know what year it was published. Let's see.
And then it was updated. So copyright 2014. Yeah, we had a major and 2017. So we had a big tax laws changed 2017, for the starting in 2018, so yeah.
Yeah. So when I do my quarterly tax payments, I also do essentially a profit distribution. And so that's how big corporations do it, is they'll do their quarterly distributions. And I don't recommend emptying your profit at that point, because I'm a big believer in saving for a rainy day and having that to fall back on. Because again, regardless of how this works, anyone that's worked in any realm of commission-based income or sales or any sort of thing like that, it just is, it's crazy, like you have to be prepared for that sort of stuff. And so I just think it's one of those things that, like, I don't empty it out, but I do take things and I will say, okay, we've been wanting to go on this vacation. I'm going to take a distribution and take a certain percentage of my profit. So I take up to 5% of my profit at that point each quarter. At the end of the year, I'm taking, 20% of my profit.
Yep. That's awesome. That is awesome. Is there any questions? I'm looking on our Facebook.
See,
no questions right now. I'm going to go to the very end of the book because I didn't get there, and I want to see what punchline I missed.
Yeah, and I think the key here too is, so the first time I read this book, I'm going to kind of proactively answer some questions here. The first time I read this book, I thought to myself, 5 accounts, like that's a lot of accounts.
Yes.
And I sort of struggled with that. Now, I have talked to plenty of people who have implemented Profit First in their business, including myself, and it does not have to be 5 accounts. So I know people that have 9 accounts. I know people that have 4 accounts. I know people that have 3 accounts. So it completely depends on what you want to do. So for instance, I don't have an owner's comp account. I put that into my personal account, my account, because that's my payroll to pay myself. And so that's how that kind of works. And you can adjust it with some folks,
Right.
So I thought that was really important. The other thing that I also think is really important is when you look at those 5 accounts and you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, like how am I going to pay to have 5 accounts? The other thing that I figured out, and I actually emailed Mike Michalowicz, who wrote the book, because he offers it in the introduction, and I was like, all right, sure, I'll email this guy. And he replied, which I thought was super nice. But if you go to, so a lot of these big banks, like a Wells Fargo or Bank of America, or just big brands, they don't care how many accounts you're creating, and you're going to get charged the fees no matter what. But if you go to a smaller bank and you say, hey, I want to open up 5 accounts, a lot of them will really work with you on the fees.
Yes.
And so that was something I learned when I actually went ahead and implemented this. So if you're serious about trying to implement this, I think that's very, very important.
Going to checking out a local bank. I think you should support a local bank anyway.
As I oftentimes say, run that rabbit and see how that could play out if you were to implement it. Don't just say, I'm not paying to have 5 different accounts. I'll put this cash here and I'll shove some in my cowboy boot. We'll be done with it. I think that's also, it's important to see what would my actual cost be for this.
Yeah. I think that I like the last chapter actually the best, how to keep it from falling apart.
Yes.
Because this is kind of always what I look at anything oh yeah, that all sounds really great in theory, and I could probably keep that going for a month. But then what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing while you're looking for your spot that I love is on page, 156, they talk about, and it's in the more advanced techniques, but they talk about shifting your focus from your monthly nut. And I bring that up because I talk in monthly nut all the time, of what are my expenses this month? What I know, that when it comes to knowing your number, Most anyone that is a successful small business knows exactly what their expenses are going to be each month.
Yep.
And I love that he says, you know, you get what you focus on. So stop focusing on your expenses, focus on profit, and the expenses will be taken care of by default. And I love that point, because if you're focused on truly becoming profitable with his new formula of sales minus profit equals expenses, your expenses inherently will be taken care of when you're keeping up with that profit amount.
Right. Exactly.
It's a really good point, because I found I'm in, let's see, year 3, I think. Yeah, year 3, maybe year 4, but year 3, I think, of doing profit first. And it, for me, I'm feeling like that shift away from expenses like nowish. I didn't feel that immediately.
That's an interesting point, because I look at this and it really does, even though it's kind of what already happens with us, I see a way where we can actually go even further with it.
Yeah.
But it makes me go, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I'll feel it like that. It's really going to be against your nature at first. And feel just a little bit weird.
So are you talking about his 5 rules to keep locked into the lifestyle, the profit first lifestyle?
Actually, I was talking about just in general, getting started, getting used to it, and feeling,
chapter 11. Yes, I see.
And then, but I was focusing on chapter 11, how to keep it from falling apart, because I always want that punchline to be like, okay, that's great, you started it great, but then, like, how does it fall apart, and how can you kind of head that off at the pass?
So before we get there, because I love that point, I want to go to these 5 rules to adopt it into your lifestyle, because these
good call
are starting points. So if you didn't read the book, or if you did,
you're like,
okay, what do I do now? I love his first 5 rules, because I think they're super important. They're on page 173. And the first one is always start by looking for a free option. So that's what I mean when I say, like, run the rabbit, try the free trials, go through the programs. Like, don't pull the trigger on that big program until you know, okay, I'm going to use this, or this is the best solution for me. Never buy new when you can get the same benefit if you would have bought used. And I like his line of, it's used as soon as you buy it anyway.
Right.
So, don't worry about it. Never pay full price if you can avoid it. I think that's pretty much like in the realtor handbook.
Right.
Like, never pay full price if you can avoid it. Negotiate and seek alternatives. And then the last one I thought was really important. Delay major purchases until you've written down 10 alternatives to making the purchase and have thought through each one. And that way you can save your splurging for those quarterly distributions.
Yep.
Because I think that's really important, of like that, those major splurge items. Like, I used to be kind of a click warrior, as I would put it, of like, how many of us have Amazon on our phone? I eventually deleted Amazon from my phone, because I found that I'd like be talking about something and I'd just order it, and then it would show up a week later and I was like, what? Why the hell do I have this?
Yeah.
But I was spending a ton of money doing that. And I think I'm not in the minority there. Maybe I am. But
sounds doing real good.
So important, of like, if you start thinking in alternatives first, that kind of shifts you away from that initial spending habit. So now what you're talking about in chapter 11, Kate.
So in chapter 11, ironically, which sounds like bankruptcy, the mistakes, how to keep it from falling apart. And he goes through how many mistakes? 2, 3, 6, 8. So he goes through 8 mistakes. The first, the biggest mistake, it's for, when entrepreneurs are doing it, is going it alone, like not getting help, not like having a buddy like Alyssa or your accountant, or, having somebody helping you implement this, because you've got, if it's just you and this hasn't been a habit that you've done before, it's very unlikely that you're going to really stick to it or get it all the way done if you're not partnering with someone to help you out. The second mistake, and this is the mistake that I would do. This is probably my most likely downfall. Too much too soon. Just to be like, all the profit. And now you have like, no, you can't have any expenses and you can't grow your business. And every little check and every little dime that you spend is like, oh, no, I know that's profit. Like, no, actually, we really do need whatever that is. We do need to boost that ad, or we do need to buy those curtains to stage the house. Like, those things are important and they're moving us forward. So too much too soon hit real close to home. Mistake number 3, grow first and profit later. So people just don't want to talk about it, but they're like, oh no, I'm just going to, like he's saying, plow all back into the business. I'm going to reinvest in my business. And that was an eye opener for me in the beginning when he wrote about how that's actually not the way to do it. But that's what you hear people say all the time. I'm a huge Shark Tank junkie. So Mark and I will watch that. And then while he's like, the bagel guy's coming on, and I'm like, tiki, 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 out of business. Like all these people who, they had all this professional advice, blah, 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 blah. But I put all my profits back into the business. Like, where, how, why? And so these guys talking about growing first, and then I'll have.
That's a good point, because I struggled with that too. Of like, so I implemented profit first right as I was starting this company, and I was like, yeah, keep all the profit. And then I was struggling with that too, of like, but I need money to do something.
Yeah.
I don't have any money if I give it all to my profit. Where's any of my money? I think that's it, is like, I'm very much, and you and I are wired the same way in that way of like all or nothing kind of stuff. And so I really struggle with that of how do I, like, what is the right percentage? And I'll tell you guys, as someone who's done profit first in my business, it has taken some tweaking for me to be at the right percentage. And again, talk to an accountant about the percentages that he recommends, but it's the theory that I want you to grab hold of, not necessarily the percentages. The percentages can all be tweaked. Mine looks nothing like it. My friend that introduced me to profit first, hers looked nothing like his. It's not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what is the right one for you.
Yeah, that's sorry, I just dropped something. One of the so like the next one, cutting the wrong costs, this part of the book actually opened my eyes so much. So cutting the wrong costs, again, going back to my own personal life, like when we went through the recession, it was terrible. It was beyond terrible. And I get very sensitive to, after you've lived through really hard times, you get real sensitive to if, money's ever possibly going to be an issue. So I used to, and I still do sometimes, like where Mark will be like, hey, you know what? Like, we want to kind of just go easy this week. Let's just kind of really watch what we're doing. And because of whatever, now he hasn't said there's an emergency or like the sky is falling or anything like that. He's just like, you want to maybe make sure everybody, eats lunch, brings lunch this week, like simple as that. So then I go grocery shopping and I'm like, we just need noodles. That's all. We'll be fine. And like everything is like just dramatic and horrible. I buy all the like store brand cereal, and he's like,
yeah, I know. And my kids are like, what the hell?
What is wrong with you?
I know. And I'm like, we can't afford it. It's not going to work. And I'm like, and I'm the exact same way. I mean, I do this every time. My wife will tell you, every time we book like a big trip for the next 2 weeks after, I'm like, I'm having money problems. I'm not who I am. Like, it's just one of those, like, I get kind of that sticker shock item still of like, wow, that's a big expense. But I think you're right of like, it's not a super comfortable thing at first.
Right, but like so the way it shows up in he made a good example of cutting the wrong costs in business. Like you could it would be easy for you to cut something like, all right, we're not going to do any more ads, no more promos on Facebook, Instagram. No, we just use whatever the free version of that. When all your data shows that you're getting all this engagement, you're getting business grew when you started investing in ads or whatever, but you're like, no, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And then now you're actually having a problem. That wasn't the right thing to cut. You cut it because maybe it felt like something that should be cut or whatever, but it's not the right thing. You should be cutting, like, maybe we don't have to, buy lunch for the office every week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the stuff, and just focusing on the right thing to cut. I love the example he gives. He talks about a knife factory, and the guy said, they had old tools. Said, yep, we have systems from the 1960s even. We save so much money by keeping our old equipment. And then he said, during my tour, I also noticed that the knives they produced were inconsistent in terms of quality. Coincidentally, I had toured a different knife company earlier that week and noted that in one cumulative hour of manufacturing, they were able to turn out one perfect knife after another at a volume 4 times that of the company stuck in a decade of the screaming Beatles fans and free love. So it's interesting to, invest in efficiency.
Yes.
Invest in efficiency. And like just sitting with that for a minute was like, okay. Yes.
Well, I love it. I love the way he puts it too, of like the small questions only yield small answers. So if you're only saying like, how can I save $5 this week? You'll only save $5 this week.
Right.
But if you ask like, how can we make $100,000 more this year as a company? You might just do it. And I love the example that he uses. I've used this in some of my talks, the UPS example. I don't know if you got to this part, it's toward the end of the book, but where he talks about how UPS trucks almost always take right turns. And in 2006, UPS asked an efficiency question about fuel costs, and they discovered that UPS drivers spent less time less time in left turn lanes. Sorry, they were burning less fuel, waiting at lights. They didn't have to cross traffic. There was less idle time, and the UPS now experiences savings of $6 million a year by trying to route them to mostly take right turns.
That is insane.
Yeah, really? And I mean, it's like they've done other big things like that. Like UPS is a fascinating case study in that way, where UPS also said, if you look at any of your drivers, that none of them have they're not supposed to have their keys hooked to their belt loop. Instead, they have them hooked on their wrist, like on a bracelet type thing. Because what they found was drivers were fumbling for their keys. And instead, this quick flip of the wrist, it's only saving 5 to 10 seconds each stop. But you multiply that by the 50 times a day that they're stopping at people's houses, like you're saving a lot of time and money. And so, I mean, like they now only wash their trucks once every 2 days rather than every day. Like, I mean, all of these things that are small, teeny tiny tweaks that as a customer of a company like that, I have no notice whatsoever. Like I have no understanding that the keys on his wrist are different than the keys on his belt loop.
Yeah.
Or that them taking right turns is saving fuel costs and things like that. But imagine what they're doing with that $6 million.
No, I know it's actually fascinating. You actually you had me at washing the trucks. Just the fact that they washed them and did not consider that a complete, like something. Well, let's just stop washing the trucks. They'll be fine. Dirty trucks run just as well as clean trucks, right?
Right.
Do they though? Like something that's clean is typically going to get looked at more. You might notice a dent or a tail light that's out. So they still kept that piece in there. I love that. Yep. The fifth mistake that he brings up is the plowing back and the quote reinvesting. And I'm still like, what? Plowing back and reinvesting is not actually the way to go. He says we use fancy terms to justify taking money out of our different allocation accounts to cover expenses. Two that are used the most often are plow back and reinvest, which are really just other ways to say borrow. I've done this. I've plowed back money from my profit account to cover operating expenses, and boy, do I regret it. When you don't have enough, but this, I want to read this. When you don't have enough money in your operating expenses account to cover expenses, it's a big red flag that your expenses are too high and you need to find a way to fix them fast. Fast forward down here. Likewise, entrepreneurs continue to use their credit cards for day-to-day operations and call them lines of credit. This is not accurate. It's money you don't have. Amen. Your credit card spending limit is almost never a bridge loan to carry the business for sure cash flow gaps. That is such a scary way to do things. They're simply used to pay expenses, resulting in debt, plain and simple. Using credit card to cover what you can't afford is also a red flag that your expenses are too high. Stop using the credit card and reserve it for legitimate emergencies or unique circumstances. I struggle with that one because we pay ours off.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that one too. I still use my credit card and I pay it off. Yeah, I just am never gonna be a cash person.
Okay, I'm with you too. I mean, I got
mugged this one time and all they stole was my cash. So I'm actually a big believer that cash is not the key to everything. But I mean, I totally understand the principle behind it, and I think it's a valid premise that he sets forth.
Yeah,
it's just not me, and I think it's not nearly as practical as they want it to be. So I think about, I don't know if I'm like everyone else, but if you're anything like me, you have a cup on your dresser. Mine's actually in my bathroom, and it just holds loose change.
Yep.
And
my feeling have a Poland Springs bottle of it.
Right, exactly. And my feeling about it is it's one of those things of like every time I pull out a $20 bill and I pay for something and I get cash back, then it's great. I get the cash back and I might not use it, but am I also aware of what money I really have, or is it just kind of going in that jar? So I think he's right that it probably does not get spent as much, but I just don't think in today's day and age it's as practical.
No, it's just not. It's just not. And so, the way we do it, where we pay them off every month, is risky because if things ever got low, be like, well, why don't we just carry the balance for a month? Like that is a slippery slope, and works right with human nature and vice in all of our insecurities to put us right into debt. It's like so easy to drop right in there. Oh my gosh, we're running out of time.
Yes, we are. So before we end, sorry, I've got our other book. So we selected our June book.
Yes.
If you did not get a chance to read this book, by the way, I do recommend reading it. There's a link, on the page where you can buy it, or you can buy it on Amazon or Audible. Take the time to do it, though. You can see it's not a huge book. All of the books we select are about
and it's like an easy read and super well organized. Like the chapters make total sense. And with my tiny little attention span, look, like you have headings every once in a while that keep you from getting bored. I actually found it really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's worth, if you are a business owner, self-employed, even an independent contractor, I think it's a really important book to read.
They have one for like construction contractors, which I was
thinking. Yes. And so definitely take the time, find the book and read it. In June though, Katie and I were talking and we said, summer is coming, winter is not, summer is coming. And, we know that as summer comes, focusing is tough. So our book for June is Mike Michalowicz, Free to Focus.
Hitting all my issues. I don't like it.
I know we've talked time management in the past. I know we've tackled a whole bunch of stuff with people like Mel Robbins. But this is basically a total productivity system that Michael Hyatt has come up with. That is designed to help you achieve more by actually doing less.
And this is a new book, brand new book.
This is a brand new book. So we realized not only because Brene Brown is amazing, but her book was a big hit. And part of Katie and I's logic behind that is we think part of why it was a hit is because it was a new book and many people had not already read it. So we want to drip a few new books in here and there. And we will be back in June on Thursday. I believe it's June 6th. The Thirst Thursday. Katie and I will have a drink in hand.
Yeah, we will.
Day, right, Katie?
You know it.
Absolutely. And we will be talking about free to focus. But you have any final imparting wisdom to leave with them?
You know what? Anybody who's watching this, who's like, if you've been in the book club for like since the beginning, if you're just like, what are they doing? What is on her head? And why did they make her be in the basement? That's a whole other conversation. But if no matter where you're on the journey, check it out. And all of the books that we're putting out they have real good juice in them.
Yep.
And this whole, like, if you look at the whole picture of what we're doing, the whole idea is to come out a more successful human being. So in all ways, and we're both in business, so we want, we're looking to focus it on business as well. So if you're self-employed or a small business owner, this is a great place to drop in. But like, man, it's the reading of the books. It's feeding your brain with this stuff that just makes you better. And you have time.
For sure. No, absolutely. You have time. As I said, these books are not very large. They're quick reads. They're designed to be quick reads. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, make sure you join the Facebook group. If you don't know where it is, it's Between the Lines. Or you could message me or Katie and we'll make sure that you get in the group.
We can put it in the comments here.
I'll drop it down there in the comments. But other than that, we will see you on the Thirst Thursday in June. We're halfway done with the year at that point.
Woo!
Unbelievable. Well, I hope you guys have an awesome month, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing all about how focused you guys are in June.
Squirrel.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.